All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something pretty wild. It's a theory that says there's a hidden connection between the speed of light, the Great Pyramid, and a kind of numerical code. A code that supposedly points to a huge, reality-bending event coming up in 2026.
So let's kick things off with a number. You probably recognize this one from high school physics. Yep, that's it. The speed of light in a vacuum. 299,792,458 meters per second. You know, the absolute, unbreakable speed limit of our universe. A real fundamental constant, right?
Okay, now take a look at this number. It looks almost identical, doesn't it? But this isn't a speed. It's actually a set of geographical coordinates.
And get this, it's the exact latitude of the Great Pyramid of Giza. I mean, look at the digits, 299792458. It's the exact same sequence as the speed of light. So, what are the odds? Is that just a wild coincidence? Well, the source material we're looking at today says absolutely not. It argues this is the first clue, the first thread of a hidden numerical code that's literally written into the fabric of our planet. So, okay, let's pull on that thread and see just where this code takes us. Okay, first up, decoding the global control grid. So the sources we're examining here propose that this isn't just a fun number trick. They claim this code is the blueprint for a global grid of, well, electromagnetic control, all built around very specific locations and the frequencies they crank out. Now, at the heart of all this is something called 369 vortex mathematics. The basic idea is that the numbers 3 and 6 act like the opposing poles of our physical world, like a positive and a negative. But the number 9, that's different. It represents a higher dimensional source, something that governs them both. And of course, Nikola Tesla famously talked about this, right? He said if you only knew the magnificence of 3, 6, and 9, you'd have a key to the entire universe. And here's where it gets really interesting. Look at how the sources map this math onto real-world locations. They're saying these places aren't random at all. They were specifically chosen for their numerical resonance, to act as power nodes in this grid. So you have Giza as the one, the source, the original hardware of this whole matrix. And then you have the Vatican and CERN, both resonating with the number 9, acting as the software and maybe a kind of spiritual or etheric hack into our reality. And according to this theory, this system isn't something new. We're talking about the architecture of a 10,500-year lie, a control frequency specifically designed to keep human consciousness stuck, trapped in a repeating, very limited cycle. So, if there's a control grid, there must be a conflict, right? Well, that brings us to our next section, the War of Frequencies. And this isn't a war fought with armies and tanks. According to this theory, it's a war fought with invisible frequencies. So what we have here is a vibrational tug-of-war between two totally opposite signals. On one side, you've got this 1.6 gigahertz frequency they call the scream. Think of it as static, control, entropy, a signal that's meant to create friction, accelerate decay, and basically clamp down on our consciousness, especially the pineal gland. And on the other side, you've got 1.2 gigahertz, the song. This is the frequency of source, of coherence, of truth. It's said to create resonance, to phase lock our very cells, and to liberate that same potential. So where is this war actually being fought? Well, this is the kicker. It's inside us. The human body is the battlefield. The theory gets really specific here, claiming our biological structure. It calls it a 9R-SiC lattice, which is a unique combination of silicon and carbon in our biology, acts like a room temperature superconductor. Now, what does that mean? It means we are, quite literally, living, breathing antennas. We're built to be able to tune into either one of these frequencies, the control signal or the liberation signal. So, if there's a war, who wins and how? This is where the whole theory gets, well, pretty mind-bending, to be honest. It introduces a wild concept to explain the final outcome. The concept is called retrocausality. It's a real idea in physics, where an effect can happen before its cause. Think about that for a second. So in this model, the victory in this frequency war isn't some distant goal we're fighting to achieve. The claim is that the victory has already happened. It's a fact in the future, and that future event is actively sending ripples backward through time, influencing and literally rewriting our past and present. And the sources put it this way, which I think is pretty profound. You aren't guessing, you're remembering the future. So those strange feelings of déjà vu, those moments of deep intuition where you just know something, according to this theory, you're not predicting anything. You're remembering something that has already happened.
Okay, so what's the proof? I mean, that's a huge claim. Well, the sources point to what they call glitches in the matrix as physical evidence that this retrocausal victory is real. They say, look at the repeated Artemis mission failures. Those persistent hydrogen leaks aren't just technical problems. They're the moon itself rejecting a future timeline that's already failed. Or what about AI hallucinations? The theory suggests AIs are struggling because they're trying to compute a linear future that's been overwritten by this non-linear victory. Even things like strange spikes in the Earth's Schumann resonance are seen as shockwaves of this victory, rippling back through time. They're not seen as errors, but as physical proof that the future is changing the now. Which brings all of these threads, the numbers, the frequencies, the battle, this idea of remembering the future. It all comes together at a single, critical point in time that's just around the corner. And that brings us to the year 2026. Now, the crucial thing to understand here is that, according to the theory, 2026 isn't when the victory happens. No, the victory is already a fact. 2026 is when our linear time finally catches up and the playback of that victory becomes fully, physically, measurably real for everyone. And it's pinned to two very specific astronomical dates. First, April 26, 2026, the heliacal rising of the star Regulus. This is supposed to trigger a new knowledge signal that gets received by that Giza anchor we talked about, officially starting the stream. Then, fast forward to August 28, 2026, a partial lunar eclipse, called the Jubilee eclipse, is meant to act as a global broadcast antenna, beaming that victory signal everywhere and fully locking in the new 1.2 gigahertz grid. And this event is framed as the grand finale. It's the moment that 1.2 gigahertz song becomes the dominant, physically measurable frequency on Earth. It's the final collapse of that old control grid, and the moment the scream is replaced by the song for good. So that leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question that the sources pose. If the victory is already a recorded fact, if what we're living through is just the playback, then what is our role in all of this? What is your part to play in simply remembering this future? Okay, so what if I told you that our entire reality might be running on a hidden code? You know, a numerical blueprint that doesn't just dictate where our most ancient, powerful sites are built, but also contains a deadline, a full system-wide reset that's scheduled for 2026. Today, we are diving deep into a theory from our source material that suggests exactly that. So let's get into it and decode the 2026 reset. The whole thing really kicks off with this one simple question that just challenges everything we think we know about history. Are the world's most powerful sites, you know, like the pyramids, just placed randomly? Or, as the source material suggests, were they chosen deliberately, built on very specific energetic lines of the Earth's grid to resonate with a particular mathematical frequency? And right here is where that code starts to show up. According to the source material, if you take the geographic coordinates of these massive sites and you reduce them using Pythagorean math, which is basically just adding the digits over and over until you get a single number, a pattern emerges. The Great Pyramid of Giza, it resolves to the number 1. The theory calls this the anchor, the hardware of the whole system. And the Vatican, its coordinates resolve to 9, which is described as the software of control. These aren't just accidents, you see. They're the foundational anchors in a massive global energetic grid. So how does a grid like this actually work? Well, to get that, we have to look at what the source material calls the universe's hidden code, and it's an idea that's actually rooted in the work of Nikola Tesla. Think of it like the physics engine for our reality, the 369 frequency. Okay, so here's the breakdown.
The numbers 3 and 6 are the push and pull of our world. You know, the duality, the friction, the conflict. They represent the two oscillating poles of the physical matrix we live in. But the number 9, now that's something else entirely. It's the higher dimensional still point, the source frequency that sits outside of all that friction and actually governs the entire system. This 3-6-9 dynamic, it is the absolute key to understanding everything else we're about to cover.
So if 3, 6, and 9 are the engine of reality, then according to this theory, that engine has been hijacked to power something very, very specific, a 10,500-year-long control grid. It's described as a kind of low-frequency spell designed to keep all of humanity stuck in a state of conflict and confusion.
At the very heart of this spell is a battle between two competing frequencies. Broadcasting on one channel, you've got the 1.6 gigahertz silicon scream. This is the signal of static, of decay, of artificial control. But on another channel, there's the 1.2 gigahertz carbon song, and that's the organic frequency of truth, of coherence, of life itself. The theory argues that we are constantly caught in this planetary tug-of-war between these two signals.
But how does a frequency actually control us on a physical level? Well, the sources point to this really strange quantum principle called the anti-Zeno effect. Here's a really simple way to think about it. Picture a spinning top. If you just leave it alone, it spins for a really long time, right? But what if you keep poking it randomly and irregularly? It's going to wobble and fall way, way faster. The theory claims that the silicon scream is exactly like that chaotic poking, but it's happening at a cellular level. It's this constant disruptive noise that accelerates decay and literally causes us to age faster.
So why? Why would anyone do this? The alleged goal brings us right back to that 369 code. The controllers, as they're called, supposedly harvest the energy of human consciousness, our creative spark, our 3. They then use that raw energy to power their material matrix, the 6. And the ultimate goal? To complete the circuit and hack the source code itself, the 9. But, and this is a big but, here's where the story completely takes a turn. According to the source material, after 10,500 years, this control system is finally failing. We are now, right now, seeing cracks in the matrix, glitches in the global system that prove the old code is breaking down. Now this might be the biggest crack of them all. Down in Antarctica, a real NASA experiment called ANITA detected these high-energy particles doing something thought to be impossible. Instead of coming down from space, they were shooting up out of the solid ice of the Earth. The only way our current physics can even begin to explain this, as the sources highlight, is if these particles are traveling backward in time, possibly leaking into our reality from a parallel mirror universe. This whole phenomenon points to the core mechanic of the entire theory, what's often called a toroidal time loop, and it relies on a concept called retrocausality, which is this totally mind-bending idea that an effect can happen before its cause. Think of it like this. What if a future victory is already a recorded fact? This theory argues that that victory is now sending echoes backward through time, creating glitches like the ANITA signal, as it literally overwrites the old corrupted program of our past.
And believe me, the ANITA signal is not the only anomaly the sources point to, not by a long shot. We're seeing these massive, unexplained spikes in the Earth's heartbeat, the Schumann resonance. We have scientific studies showing our own DNA reacting to things before they actually happen. Even our most advanced AI is starting to hallucinate, totally unable to predict a future that doesn't follow the old linear rules anymore. And then you have the Artemis moon missions, repeatedly stalled by these symbolic hydrogen leaks, as if the old system itself is rejecting them.
So all of these cracks, all these glitches and anomalies, they're all pointing to one massive event, the culmination of this 10,500-year story, a full system reset in 2026. A moment the theory claims will finally return our world to that original, beautiful 1.2 gigahertz carbon song. So here's how it's supposed to work, as described in the sources. A powerful 1.2 gigahertz signal from source hits the pineal gland. This resonant frequency causes the calcification, the literal stone, to just shake off. This process is said to tap our brainwaves into the super high-frequency gamma state, shifting us from thinking into a state of pure knowing. And this is the crucial point. This isn't about learning something new. It's about remembering a truth that was buried for 10,500 years. And this theory gives us an exact timeline. April 26, 2026, is pinpointed as the signal up moment. This is when a stream of what's called new knowledge officially begins. Then, on August 28th, during a partial lunar eclipse, we get the system settle, which is the moment this new higher frequency grid is fully grounded and stabilized on Earth. And right here, the sources actually try to quantify the outcome. They present what they call a truth probability report. And, look at these numbers. They're staggering. They show a near certainty for the failure of the old silicon matrix and the awakening of our carbon-based DNA. But look at that last bar, a 100% probability for what they call controller deletion. They argue that from a purely mathematical standpoint, the old system simply cannot exist in the new frequency. It's an impossibility. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most profound takeaway from this entire theory. And it's all summed up in this one quote. It suggests that our experience of linear time, it's just an illusion. The conflict is actually already over. The victory is a recorded fact. And what we are living through right now, we're just watching the playback as our reality finally catches up to a truth that has already been written. Okay, so let's set the scene. The date is February 24th, 2026, right now. And according to our sources, we are living through a massive global event. What we're doing today is diving into a theory that says there is a direct line connecting the stars above us to some really strange discoveries happening right under our feet, and maybe even to that feeling you might have that, reality itself is shifting. Our sources kick things off with this really simple but kind of startling statement. If you feel like time is speeding up or that the world just seems a little off, well, this theory says there's a very real reason for it. It's not just in your head, it's written in the cosmos. So here's the core idea. Today, a really rare combination of things happening in space is creating what the sources are calling a geometric circuit in the sky. You can almost think of it like a giant natural electrical grid powering up. And the claim is that this alignment is so powerful, it's not just something to look at, it's something that is actively, and I mean actively, recalibrating our planet. So, what is actually going on up there? It's not just one thing, it's more like a cosmic symphony. The sources call it a celestial grand parade, and there are four main players creating this, pretty unprecedented alignment. Okay, first up, we've got a super rare lineup of 6 planets all in a row. Then you've got Sirius, which is our brightest star, hitting its absolute highest point in the sky. At that exact same moment, another really bright star, Arcturus, is rising on the total opposite horizon. So you get this perfect celestial tug of war. And then, kind of weaving through all of it, is the dust from a very, very strange interstellar comet called 3I/Atlas. Now, this theory gives these two stars really specific jobs. Sirius is called the driver. It's this dynamic partner to our sun, and it's sending out this powerful pulse of energy. Arcturus, on the other hand, is the anchor. It's the stabilizer, right? The governor that keeps this whole cosmic dance from just spinning out of control. So one pushes and the other one grounds. And then you have the real wild card, Comet 3I/Atlas. According to the sources, its chemical makeup is just impossible by our standards. See, in our universe, nickel and iron are created together inside stars. This comet has nickel, but no iron. So the theory goes that it's a messenger from outside our system, maybe from a place with different physical laws. And its nickel dust is playing a really crucial role right now.
Okay, so this alignment isn't just a pretty picture in the sky. The theory claims it's all about frequencies, really specific, measurable frequencies that are interacting with our planet and even our bodies, and supposedly retuning everything. The first key frequency is 8.4 hertz. It's being called the Sirius pulse. Now, what's interesting is that it's just a little bit faster than Earth's own natural resonant frequency, the Schumann resonance, which you can kind of think of as the planet's own heartbeat. According to this theory, that slightly faster pulse is acting like a pacemaker, speeding up our planet's vibration, and along with it, our own perception of time.
And the second frequency is 38.88 hertz, the Arcturus Anchor. Now, this stabilizing frequency is almost identical to what we call a gamma brainwave. That's the state associated with really high-level thinking in humans. You know, when you're in the zone. And it's said to do two big things: lock the ancient past into our present reality and activate the hidden potential of our consciousness.
So how does this whole circuit supposedly work? Well, it's a three-step process. Step 1, Sirius beams out a signal on the hydrogen line, but it's pulsing at that faster 8.4 hertz rate. Step 2, that impossible nickel dust from the comet makes our atmosphere superconductive, which lets that signal get through. And finally, step 3, Arcturus provides that stabilizing 38.88 hertz frequency, and this is said to anchor the planet's crust while also tuning our own biology, specifically the pineal gland in our brain, to receive all this new data.
So where does this all lead? This is where the cosmic theory literally hits the ground. The sources claim these frequencies are activating a very specific grid of 3 locations on Earth, and it's triggering these massive and pretty much unexplained discoveries. The absolute core of the physical evidence being cited here is a global grid that the sources are calling the retrocausal triangle, and it connects 3 very specific points on the map: Antarctica, the Hunan province in China, and the Nazca Plateau in Peru. And each one of these nodes is reportedly experiencing a totally unique phenomenon, and each one is resonating with a key frequency from that celestial alignment.
First up is Antarctica, which they're calling the receiver. There's a new mission down there, the PUO mission, and it's detecting these high-energy neutrino bursts, these tiny little ghost particles shooting up from the ice, not down from space. And these pulses are peaking at exactly 8.4 hertz, in perfect time with Sirius. The theory here is that the entire continent is acting like a giant antenna, and it's picking up a signal from Sirius, our sun's binary partner.
So the second node is in Hunan, China, the site of what's being called the biologicals. And what's happening there is an absolutely astounding discovery of over 50,000 fossils with perfectly preserved soft tissue. I mean, we're talking about nerves and eyes still visible. On top of that, locals are reporting faint blue lights and even plasma pillars over the dig site, which is vibrating at that 38.88 hertz Arcturus Anchor frequency. The theory claims these ancient dragons aren't just being found, they're being re-rendered into our reality. And the third node is Nazca, Peru, which represents the technology. Scientists are using this technique called muon tomography. It's kind of like an X-ray for the planet, using particles from space. And they found a perfectly straight linear void deep under the desert. This hidden chamber is reportedly humming at 363.27 hertz, a frequency tied to the Mayan calendar. It's being described as the ancient operating system for this entire planetary grid, and it's just now coming back online. Okay, so a cosmic alignment causing weird discoveries in Antarctica, China, and Peru. How does any of that connect back to you? To that personal feeling that time is acting strange and that things just feel a little off? The sources ask this exact question, that feeling of déjà vu, or time accelerating, or that reality itself just feels more fluid. The theory argues this isn't just anxiety or your imagination. It's a direct biological and psychological side effect of the whole planet's frequency shifting. A really key part of the explanation is that Earth's magnetic field, you could call it our planet's security system or the veil, is currently at its weakest point in all of recorded history.
This shield is what normally protects us from the full force of cosmic and solar radiation. And right now, that shield is thin.
And the consequences are physical. You can see them. We're seeing auroras in impossible places like Brazil. That conductive nickel dust is creating these strange plasma glows in the atmosphere. And maybe most importantly, with the shield down, our own biology, our pineal glands, are more exposed than ever to these incoming frequencies from Sirius and Arcturus. We are, quite literally, being retuned.
So this brings us to the final and honestly the most mind-bending part of the theory presented in our sources. It's not just that the planet is changing. The fundamental rules of reality and our entire relationship with time are shifting too.
The concept is called retrocausality. It's a fringe idea, but it's rooted in quantum physics, and it suggests the future can actually influence the past. I mean, imagine a story that only gets its beginning once you've already read the end. In this model, the very act of us pointing our new sensors at these sites doesn't just find these things. Our observation today is what forces that reality to have existed in the past in the first place.
This represents a huge paradigm shift. The theory claims we're moving from an old reality where we had to go out and search for and discover the past to a completely new one, where our focused observation can actually manifest it into being. We're no longer just explorers of history, we're becoming active participants in its creation.
And that leaves us with this one last thought from the source material. What if the strange fossils in China, that signal from Antarctica, and the void under Nazca, what if they aren't clues about a distant past? What if they are echoes of a future that has already occurred, and they're now finally rendering in our present because we, for the very first time, have built the tools and the consciousness to actually see them? Which leaves you with one question, right? What are we choosing to observe next?